Coming up tonight on Game All Night, I'm joined by publisher and designer Gil Hova.
Welcome to Game All Night.
Well, hello and welcome to yet another Game All Night. I am about to be joined by Gil Hova of Formal Ferret Games. He is sitting in the green room as we speak. So, you know what? I think we can bring him out now without further ado. Hello there, Mr. Gil. How are you doing tonight, sir?
Hey, Chris. Hey, everyone. It's great to be here.
It's awesome to have you. I mean, we've been playing a little bit of tag, trying to get all situated, but we got here, right?
We made it happen. We made it work.
It's funny what, probably would have been a 2-hour drive, and sometimes it's just harder to meet up online than it is in person sometimes.
And I didn't even realize it was a 2-hour drive until just now.
Right, because we never, I don't know, it's one of those weird things that unless there's an accent involved, I don't think we really ask anybody where they're from, do we?
Mm-hmm. No, I guess not, yeah.
So, I mean, well, now I know that you're from the New York metropolitan area, which is pretty
right.
cool.
Yep.
And you said you do a lot of play testing up there and things like that?
Yes. I recently took over my playtest group, NYC-playtest. So
okay.
we've had a lot of amazing games come out of this playtest group. Not even counting my games. Like, I'm going to set my games aside for now. But like Century Spice Road is probably the biggest game that came out of there. Quantum came out of there, the Eric Zimmerman game. I'm blanking on so many others.
Of course,
Arboretum.
Right?
Arboretum came out of our playtest group. So like that's 3 right off the top of my head. If you go to our site, you can click on a list of games, and it's pretty eye-popping which games we've gotten a chance to work on and help out.
Right, because Emerson Matsuchi was up there. There's a few other people, right? That's pretty cool.
Yep.
Awesome. So I know that you've been playing around with one that I'm very anxious for, and that's High Rise. Is that correct?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
You're teasing the daylights out of this, and if you guys don't follow Gil on Twitter, you should, because every now and then you catch a glimpse, and I put one up earlier, but it looks really cool. I like the vertical element you got going on. There's a lot of stuff there.
Yeah, there really is, and this is funny because people who have followed me know that I've got the saga about my auction game. So I had this auction game once upon a time and had this amazing auction mechanism. That was the only decent thing about the game. Everything else about the game was just awful. And so I decided I want to make a new game and I want to use this auction mechanism somewhere. So that game turned out to be Battle Merchants. Now, those of you who have actually played Battle Merchants may say, wait a second, that game doesn't have an auction mechanism. Well, that's correct, because I pulled the auction mechanism out because it didn't work. My playtesters were like, well, this game is good, but the auction mechanism is getting in the way. So it's fine, I'll make another auction game. And without getting too deep into details, that game turned out to be the Networks. Now, those of you who have played the Networks might say, hey, this game doesn't have an auction mechanism. And that's right, because the playtesters played it and they said, this game is good, but it would be better without the auction mechanism. The auction mechanism is just getting in the way. So fine, I took out the auction mechanism. It was better. So High Rise was the next attempt to make a game with the auction mechanism. Now, Chris, I will ask you, do you think High Rise has an auction?
I think it started out that way. It probably got taken out because it was unnecessary in the end.
Yeah. So it's, the auction is gone. And it's a much better game for it, of course. I mean, it was a mediocre game with the auction, but once I took the auction out, the game started to sing. So I guess I've got a methodology. I've got a way of making games. I would prefer to make a game without... I mean, I've made a couple of games without the auction mechanism, of course. But it's funny that every time I think I can actually get this thing done, it falls apart. Like... this auction, I don't think I'm ever going to be able to get it done, which is fine. I mean, I'm pretty happy with Battle Merchants and the Networks, and now with High Rise. I think all 3 of those are turning out really, really nicely.
So it begs the question, when it comes to design, are you a theme first? Are you a rules first? A mechanism first? What kind of really, what do you use as your jumping off point then?
I mean, it depends. I mean, obviously, if I'm starting with the auction mechanism, that would be mechanism first. But these days, I usually don't start until I feel like I've got a pretty good join of theme and mechanism. When I
Right.
feel like the two are working with each other, I think that's when I start actually printing the components out and solo testing and all that stuff. And before then, it's just sort of fumbling around in the dark with my arms outstretched, trying to get to that point. There's some interesting answers to this question. I love what Jeff Engelstein says about it. He says
Mm-hmm.
that he likes to design experience first. So he
Okay.
starts with how does he want the players to feel, and he goes off of that. Ultimately, I think that it doesn't really matter if you start with theme or start with mechanism. I
Right.
mean, the Networks was a mechanism first game, but people play it and it's extremely thematic. So it doesn't matter so much what you start with, so much as if you find that theme mechanism join. Because once you find that good join, you're going to be in great shape.
Right. And I think it's important for the look and feel. I mean, I can see in the networks where you had the rows of cards, and I can see where maybe there was an auction mechanic laying there and maybe bidding on the shows and bidding on everything beforehand. But I think you're right. I think it would suffer for it. Do you think it makes a game outstay its welcome because you've added this step that takes, I'm sure it took a lot of time to execute it.
Well, there were a couple of issues with it, especially with it wasn't that it was an auction per se, it was the kind of auction it was because
Okay.
the way it was. So let's say you were playing a four-player game, and I'm going to explain this auction, and it's going to sound incredibly cool. And it's one of those things that you play it and you feel like it should be cool, it should be better than it actually is. And
Right.
welcome to game design. So the way it works, you have four players. Let's say you have
Okay.
four players, just hypothetically. So they can bid whatever they want, but there's only three spots they can land in. So if somebody makes a bid, that's the high bid. And the second player can either outbid them or bid one or two spots behind them. So you can keep doing that up until the fourth player goes, at which point there might not be any room because if you have a high bid and then the first player underneath and the second player underneath, then that's all full, and the next player has to either outbid or fold. And then you
Okay.
keep on increasing your bid, and whenever you decide to fold, you've got to pay a little bit more depending on how much you bid. So it's really cool in that there are only it's like a musical chairs kind of thing, and
Mm-hmm.
that was a really cool dynamic when it worked. There were a few problems. One of the problems is that if one player folded out early, it wasn't as interesting. It tended to end earlier than it should have. Uh, the economy it sucked up so much of the attention from the game.
Right.
Like it should have been the whole game. Like it should be the kind of thing where it was like raw. So if the entire game was just the auction, that would have been something. But when I tried to redo that, I just couldn't capture it. And with High Rise, so here's another problem with the way this game works. At least this auction works, I should say. So let's say you bid and you bid and you bid, and it comes time to pay, and you can't afford it. There's a few different ways to handle that, but with High Rise, I figured, okay, well, you're building things, so you should
Right.
be able to take out loans. So I introduced loans as a mechanism. So now there is nothing keeping a player from like bidding all the way up and griefing everybody else. And that turned out to be a really problematic avenue of play. Even though it wasn't optimal, it was still an issue. So,
You still got
uh,
everybody's got that one guy.
oh yeah, oh yeah. And there were a lot. So it's really fragile. It's a really super fragile auction. And it also takes up, it's kind of like that one exhausting friend that you have who
Right.
sucks up all the attention out of every time you see them. After a while, you just get sick of them. And same with this auction. Like nothing else can exist with this auction. Like it's either the auction or the rest of the game. And every time I chose the rest of the game, it turned out that worked. And that auction was just sort of this extra step. So it's really fascinating how it always worked. Also, one thing about auctions is they're very abstract. They're not thematic. And the games that I was making at the time,
Right.
like Battle Merchants and the Networks, they wanted to be more thematic than having an auction. There's very little thematic about an auction, which is not a bad thing. I mean, if you're making a game that's about like building a medieval castle or the good old, trading in the Mediterranean,
Right.
auction's fine for that. Go for it. But if you want something more thematic, it's hard to do. It's hard to do an auction.
Now, I think a lot of people criticize auctions as kind of being lazy, and it kind of puts like the onus of pricing things and balancing things on the player as opposed to the designer. Do you think that that kind of rears its head in playtesting a little bit, and it doesn't feel as fulfilling?
See, the funny thing is, designers call that self-balancing. It's a feature, not a bug. But I think where you see that happen, where you see problems with that, is the first time people play an auction game, they don't know what to bid. Like they don't know what anything's
Sure.
value is, especially if the value becomes important. Like Chris, have you ever played Princess of Florence?
I haven't. Honestly, it's on my
Really?
shelf, and it's on my shelf
Oh,
of
really?
shame.
No way. Oh, it's so good.
It
It's
is.
it's a really, really good game. It's one of the games that really one of the first games I came across as I was reintroducing myself to games, and it's one of those that when you first start playing, it takes a while to figure out what you need to do because you only get like 14 actions and 7
Holy
auctions.
cow!
Like that's all you get over the entire game. So you got to make everything count, and the amount of thought that goes into a turn is pretty enormous. So there's an auction part of the game, and it really helps to know the values. Like usually the jesters go first,
Right.
and jesters usually go like generally people realize that the value of a jester is about 1,000,
Mm-hmm.
but usually like a new player might just say, okay, well, I'm gonna bid 200, or even they might even say I'm gonna bid 2,000 or something unrealistic. Like they
Right.
drop when it's only 600, and the other players look at each other and say, "Oh, we might get this for a little cheaper." So that's an issue with auction games sometimes, is that the value of something is not always clear, and if the teacher doesn't explain it, and you're learning the game, and there's a bunch of experienced players, things can get a little rough.
Yeah,
So
I definitely
that
think
that.
that. Yeah, it rears its head in like Power Grid. I think that's another
Mhm.
great example where there's not a ton of auctions, but if you don't know the layout of the plants and the value of the goods and how it balances based on who's
Yep.
got what, you're just you're going to wind up buying way too many things and just be completely out of it.
Yeah, yeah, and not knowing the math of the game. I mean, it really helps a lot of the time to. I mean, sometimes the first time you play a game, that first play is just scratch. That first play is all right. This is a learning game. I'm going to do really terribly in that game. But these days, we judge everything like on that first play. I mean. Frankly, if we judge it on the first play, I'm happy because so many people judge games on the box, on the rules,
Wow.
on the how to play video. That's when all the judgments get on the Kickstarter page. That's when all the judgments seem to get made these days. I don't want to sound like a cranky old man,
No,
but I'm
no.
elated when people judge my game on the first play. Used to be I'd be upset like, can't you judge it on like the second or third? Give it a chance. But now I'm like, well, I'm glad that you didn't just look at my game and say, oh, this looks like a roll and move game. I hate roll and move games, and leave before I get the chance to say, this isn't a roll and move game. What are you talking about?
It's really interesting you say that. It's been a recurring theme in the last several interviews I've done where we're kind of talking about how it's not even a result of the cult of the new. I just think it's the overwhelming amount of games coming out right now makes it very tough to give everything the full decision time it should warrant.
It's absolutely an enormous number of games. And not just that, I think we're coming from a time when you could still play every game out there. I knew someone
Yeah.
who would actually buy every game that came out in a year, and at the time you could. He had a really nice job, by the way. But yeah, he could buy. This was back in like 2003, 2004. Yeah, you could buy every game that came out. I mean, it was a lot of money. It was expensive, but
Sure.
but then more games started coming out. You couldn't do that anymore, but you could keep track of all the big games that
Right.
came out. And maybe there was this small game that came out at Essen from some small publisher that you hadn't heard of. But okay, now it's on your radar, and that's that. But we don't even have that anymore. We now have something similar to books and music, or even movies. Like
Right.
with books, like you can't read every book that comes out. You can say, okay, I'm into science fiction, so I'm only going to read every science fiction book. You can't even do that. You can't even
Nope.
read every science fiction book that comes out in a year within that year. There's just too much of it. So I don't think this is necessarily a terminal problem for board games, but I think it will cause friction as long as we have this idea that you should, or you're under some obligation to play everything that comes out and have an opinion on everything that comes out. And like, if somebody says, "Oh, I haven't played this yet," and your reaction is, "Oh my God, how have you not gotten to play that yet?" I think those reactions are going to start to vanish as we start realizing you can't even play all the big games anymore.
Yeah, I mean, I got into this back in 12. Well, I
Yep.
re-entered back in 12. And even back then, you're right, you could logistically hunt down all the big releases. You could definitely like hunt down most everything. Spiel des Jahres kind of maybe show up if you were lucky. Like you used to have to buy them on Amazon DE or something, but even back as far as like 6 years ago, we could do that. But now it's so daunting to be able to do that. Somebody who is A-type alpha gamer who must buy all the new stuff, I can't keep up with that. It's too much.
You see what happens also with gamers is when somebody first enters the hobby, they get really excited about the games that come out. So they say, "Oh, I really like this. I'm going to buy this. Oh, I really like
Right.
that. I'm going to buy that as well." And then you get to a point as you do that, maybe it could be as early as a year, it could be as late as 4 years, where you realize, I can't do this anymore. I don't have the money, I don't have the shelf space, I don't have the time. One of those axes, you realize that it's finite and you just can't do it anymore. Then comes the big sell and the big cull and the rules. Like, I am not going to buy a game until I play it. I am not going to buy a game
Yep.
until I get a recommendation from a friend or a known reviewer. And I sort of see it as two chambers. Like, there's this upper chamber where new gamers come in and they buy everything they like. And then
Right.
after a few years, they either like evaporate out of the upper chamber and they're gone, they're out of the hobby, they take up
Yep.
something else like tiny houses or something, or they drop into the lower chamber where they're still into games but they're not buying everything they see. So the thing about the hobby, the hobby's been growing and it's been making a lot of money, and it's been doing that because more people have been entering the upper chamber than have been leaving the upper chamber, because that's that upper chamber that's been driving the growth of the business.
Yeah.
Once that upper chamber starts to shrink, then we'll start seeing a contraction. I don't necessarily think it's going to be a bubble bursting, but it will
No.
be a ceiling, maybe a bit of a contraction, and that's when it's going to get uncomfortable. Because I think the more games that come out, the shorter a window it is. I said 1 to 4 years. Maybe at some point it's going to become 1 to 4 months before people realize I can't do this anymore.
Yeah, and it's I mean, I definitely fall in that bubble of, I had to curtail my spending because
Yep.
it gets to be too much, right? And then
Hmm.
on top of that, I think there's also this thing when you've been in it for, 4 years or so. I have a game that already does that. Do I need another game that does the same thing? And now you're kind of making this comparison based on things you already own. And you're like, well, I like Kemet just fine. I don't need Blood Rage. I don't need Rising Sun or whatever your choice of poison is. It's tough. It's hard to get mind share.
I was playing Mombasa and I was like, okay, well, this is good. I like it, but
Yeah.
I'm not blown away by it. And then I realized, okay, how other people feel about Mombasa, that's kind of how I felt about Goa, and I'm not saying that to earn cred or anything. It's
Right.
more about like it proves this point. Eric Martin from BGG says something similar. He says new games are for new gamers, because he was at a convention. He was at, I think it was a New York Toy Fair, actually, which
Right.
is weird because that's more of like a mass market thing. And somebody asked him, did you see anything this year that you're really excited about? And he's like, no, but it's not for me. It's for the people just entering the hobby. So, you and I will see a new game and we'll be like, oh, this is like X and Y and Z. But someone just entering the hobby will look at it and they'll be like, oh, wow, this is so cool. And
Okay.
so I think that's its place. And so long as we can keep it sustainable, I think that would be great. Um, if the gaming scene is not sustainable right now, I think I'm hoping that it's going to be just a small correction that'll solve it. Obviously, I'm a publisher. I have skin in this game, right?
Right.
I do want people to continue buying games, but I'm only releasing at most 2 games a year. So
Right.
I try to keep it realistic. I don't want to like throw shade at anyone else, but one of the reasons wanted to publish games myself is I didn't want to be my game be one of like 30 that came out of the same publisher, because it's really hard to distinguish yourself.
Right.
And of those games, what's going to happen is one of those games is going to hit it really big, and the other 29 games are going to be on clearance the next year. And as a designer, that stinks. As a player, you kind of miss out on these really potentially super interesting games. But as a publisher, it's really good because you find one game out of all of those that works really well, and that's an evergreen, and that sustains you for the next few years. So there's a reason why publishers do it. It works. It works really, really well.
It has to, right?
It's
they're doing it.
Yeah, yeah. But for me, I like doing it the opposite direction, which is admittedly the harder direction. And there are quite a few universes where I would not be on this show. I would have taken another programming job or something, and been, well, I tried to start a publishing company once, but my game never took off, and now here I am trying to pay back all my debt. So
Right.
Thankfully, fingers crossed, I'm not there yet, and I never will be. But yeah, it's tricky.
Yeah, let's certainly hope not. I mean, I also think there's something to be said for making a really good product and then refining it rather than, just trying to make like a ton and hoping to find one that's worth refining. Does that make
And
sense?
oh, absolutely, absolutely. Because speaking as someone who loves board games, I would rather work with a publisher who says, okay, this is our release for the year, or at least this half of the year, and
Right.
we're going to take everything we have and put it behind this game because we're confident in this game. We're supporting this game. We love this game as much as you.
Yeah,
Rather
the Days of
than,
Wonder model.
yeah, yeah. But the Days of Wonder model needs enormous capital,
Well,
because
this is true.
yeah, yeah, and that's one thing I found out when I started doing this is, that's why a lot of publishers don't go this way, because it costs a lot of money.
You have to run for a long time. Yeah.
I was very, very lucky that I found success early on. Had I not, it would have been really tricky. But yeah, the Days of Wonder model, a lot of publishers don't do it because it's super expensive. But it feels, I mean, this is sort of my lifestyle now. Formal Ferret Games is what I want to be doing with my life, So
Okay.
I feel like I want to do it in a way that makes me feel good and feel happy. And so doing a couple of games a year that I designed, and therefore I have skin in the game and I feel really strongly about,
Right.
I feel that that's really important.
No, absolutely. I love that. And I think that, I think this is a good place to pause for a quick break. So why don't we do that, and we'll come back, because I definitely want to know where the Formal and the Ferret came from, because I think that
Sure.
that's important, right? We need some company history here, and then we'll go from there. So we're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back after this. Well, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. As you can see, we're joined by the co-star of the show. We have
Yeah.
what it looks like a very friendly ferret
Oh,
today.
she's friendly every day. Both of my ferrets are extremely sweet. I mean, ferrets are what a lot of people don't know. They're domesticated, so they're
Okay.
not wild animals. They have no ability. Most ferrets have no ability to survive in the wild. Like they just don't know what to do. And they also love humans and they trust humans. So this is Trillian, and
She's
Trillian,
adorable.
oh, she's wonderful. And picking her up and holding her is, like picking up a little cotton ball. But yeah, I just woke her up, and she's giving me her "I just woke up" kisses, which she loves. She's really, really super affectionate and very playful, so she is a lot of fun.
Now, do you find our ferrets? What's the word I'm looking for? Do they need to be held a lot? I mean, I've had exotic pets in the past, and I know that they require a lot of maintenance as far as emotionally.
I mean, they need stimulus and they want attention and they want companionship.
Okay.
I would compare it to having maybe a step or two higher than a cat, but not
Okay.
much, but not so much as a dog.
All right. Interesting. So is this the one from your logo, or did you guys just kind of randomly pick one?
We just did something like just a picture of a ferret for our logo. The logo was made by Scott Hartman,
Okay.
who also did the graphic design for Wordsy and Bad Medicine, and he's done graphic design for a bunch of other games. He's pretty busy in the business. So Scott, what he was working from was my old avatar from before I started Formal Ferret. I had an avatar of a ferret wearing a bow tie. It was a photo from a store called the Ferret Store that sold things like ferret clothing, and that was their image for a ferret bow tie, was a ferret wearing a bow tie.
Nice.
So that was what we started with, but his wife looked at the drawing in progress and she said he needs a hat. So Scott gave him a hat as well as a bow tie, and the rest is history. And that's Formal Ferret.
Well, there you go. I mean, it's absolutely, well, I tell you what, in a day and age, it's a signature, that's for sure. And
Yeah. It's funny because there's a lot of companies that came out, and I mean, I feel like maybe I should have done more research, but there's a lot of companies that have like an adjective animal kind
Yes.
of slogan, And I know Travis Chance makes fun of me all the time for that, like,
Him
hey,
and
Gil,
TC do, yep.
how's Drunken Stingray going, But for this one, I mean, number one, people know that I'm crazy about ferrets. I've had various ferrets for 20 years. I have another ferret named Leela, but I think she's in the bedroom, sleeping in the bedroom somewhere. But I've had various ferrets for 20 years. People know that I'm crazy about them. So it felt like it was something that felt honest, It was an honest way of representing myself.
Well, I mean, if it's two things you're passionate about, right? You have,
Yeah.
your pets and you have your game company, it makes sense. And I don't
Absolutely.
I don't have any problem whatsoever with adjective animal because, the thing I incorporate myself under is called angry octopus. So I totally get it.
Oh, yeah, yep. Okay, Trilly has to rock, so
Yeah,
she's gonna say goodbye to everyone. Goodbye, everyone. So there she goes.
goodbye.
Goodbye. So off she goes. One more kiss on the nose, Trilly. One more kiss. One more
There you
kiss.
go.
Come on. Yeah, there we go. Like I said, she's super affectionate. She's very, very sweet. All right, so that's Trillian. That is one of the official Formal Ferrets. She's pretty much my boss, So
Right.
when I have to go for an annual performance review, she's one of my two bosses.
Well, and you're in a house full of ladies, so that's
Pretty
it's
much.
always got to
Yep.
be a tough day, right?
Well, these are. I mean, I've got Trillian. I've got Leela as my other ferret. So but they're pretty generous bosses. They just sleep all the time, so they're a little on the lazy side. But they're the best bosses I've ever had.
Some of the best are the ones that just kind of let you work and give you your space.
Yep. And that's definitely what they do. Except when they're hungry, then they'll come, boot me on the foot, and that's like, oh, maybe your bowl's empty, and I'll check that out.
So I do have a little bit of a confession to make, and I think that this is going to be interesting because
Uh-oh.
so 2 years ago I went to Gen Con for the 50th, right?
Yep.
And
50th was last year. 50th was last year.
okay, last year, yeah, two
Yep.
Gen Cons ago, one, yeah, okay,
Yeah.
50 last year, 16, 17, 17, the
17.
other one. All right. So anyway, I ran into you there, and you were working your booth and everything like that, and I had borrowed a name badge of Jamie Kagi for the day. He was nice enough to give me a name badge, and it was funny because the other guy I was with he had Tony Toppers. And so, you kind of, the way you kind of said, oh, hi, Jamie. And I'm like, oh, yeah, and this is Tony Topper. But you totally, like, caught me off guard because it just kept going. And I'm like, maybe it's not a joke. It felt very, like, strange. And I'm like, I didn't want to correct you because you were just showing me the executives, and it was super awesome.
It was not a joke. It was not a joke at all because I have an awful memory for faces. My memory for faces is absolutely terrible. And so if I see a name badge, I'm going to go off the name badge.
Okay.
So it's not just you I have to apologize to. Now I got to apologize to Jamie.
I thought that was hysterical. And he's like, yeah, he was probably exhausted. He didn't know. And I just thought that was hysterical. But, when we left, I'm kind of like, should I go back? That feels really weird. And then I'm like, so I figured I'd find some point to kind of rectify and apologize.
Because, good, on the air.
Oh, I'm sorry. It was. I felt just as bad because I was going to correct you, but then you kind of tied into the Tony Topper. I'm like, oh, he gets it. He's funny. And then all of a sudden I'm like, oh, crap. No, he doesn't.
So, what else you could do? Have you ever met Chevy Dodd? He works a lot with Portal games.
Not yet.
So you and Chevy have very similar looks. You could pass for Chevy. Like, you could get his name badge.
Okay.
And you could probably pass for him. Like, take off the glasses,
all right.
wear a hat, and you can pretend that you're Chevy.
Yeah,
so
but then I have to take meetings and things. Who wants to do that?
Well, maybe then he can go off and record an episode, and it'll be like the Prince of the Pauper. Nobody will ever know.
Fair enough, and then I can know what the highfalutin life of a designer with some street cred, what that life is like.
Oh yeah.
You are not the only one. I caught out Alex from. He did the Dukes of Dice podcast because he was demoing at one of the other booths, and he thought the same thing. He thought I was just punking him, but. So I tried to walk around with it flipped so nobody would really give me cause and grief, but I made for some fun stories, and I was only there one day, so it was good.
That's really good. That's really good. I'm not going to live that down. I love that. I'm going to treasure that for the rest of my days.
Well, I'm glad, but I made sure like I went up and said hi and introduced you correctly at Origins when I met you there.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So, and then of course I picked up Teletime, which I'm a huge fan of the networks. The networks does, I'm not here to just say, oh, you're awesome and all that, but I love, you captured so much. You captured a theme that I think is one of those that people have been dying to get, but it hasn't been done well, whether it's TV or movies. And then I think, the artwork and the sarcasm, that really sings to me in a way I just can't explain. And then on top of that, the British one like takes that to the next level. So you really hit the Holy Trinity, and I really hope that's a product that's doing well for you.
It's doing very well. It's in its fourth printing now.
Great.
The Executives expansion is about to ship to backers. As of the time of this recording, it's going to go out in probably about 2 weeks.
Sweet.
So I'm really excited that that's happening. That's moving forward. Because that expansion came out really, really well. It adds so much to the game. As you remember when you stole Jamie's identity and probably hid his body somewhere, and I'm sure Secret Cabal.
It was just in the trunk for the afternoon. It wasn't very long.
but no, Executives is doing really, it plays really, really well. It adds so much to the game. I mean, it adds so much because you can now play it over and over and over again with these different executives and get different looks into the game. And each executive, like the first time you play each executive, you're probably going to lose the game because there's a bit of not a learning curve, but a difficulty curve. Like, oh, you can't do the same things that you did last game with this executive. This executive, you've got to find a different approach.
And that's
what I go on.
Yeah, I love it in Teletime too. Even just something where, you had the genre bonus bingo, that was great because now I don't feel like I'm always hunting for sports or I'm always hunting, it really allowed you to kind of mix it up and have fun, but still kind of get some of that fun stuff back, which, it's amazing. One little pack really brought a lot of extra stuff to the game.
I'm so proud of how that expansion came out because when I started, it was just going to be some new shows, but I wasn't sure what to add to it
Right.
mechanically. I kind of wanted each expansion I released for the networks to bring something mechanically to the table, because
Okay.
I could do something that's just, oh, here's some stupid TV show names. Thanks for your money. But I don't want to do that. I want to give something that also adds something mechanically to the game. So I was like, originally for Teletime, it was going to be shows with two genres. So that was what I was going to mess with. So I started
Okay.
writing those out, and then I realized these don't want to have two genres, but I do want to have three new genres. So I put in three new genres, and I had a rule that, okay, well, you can't easily get three shows of the same
No,
genres
no.
with nine genres. So the original rule was you get all nine, and you get all nine, and you get a big genre bonus that way. So I tried playing that, and I play tested it with J.R. Honeycutt, who's designer of a bunch of games, including the upcoming Machikoro Legacy. I think that was just announced, so I can say that. And so JR played it, and JR was like, um, this is a 3x3 grid of genres. I want to play tic-tac-toe. And I'm like, oh, damn it. Why didn't I think of that? So once we put that in, the game just started to sing like, wow, this small tweak adds so much. So I was really happy with what Teletime brought to the table.
Now, the other thing that's really kind of interesting as a designer, I think that there's a lot of people who get stuck in designing a board and then designing a game, and maybe there's some other boards, but the way you kind of thought about the board in this game and the score track, it's a little confusing because you get all these parts, but then once you realize for all the player counts, how they move and rotate and kind of fill out, it's really thought out well. And, how did you kind of come to the conclusion that you wanted to have all those components? Because I'm sure that costs more than just doing one set and saying block these things off when you don't play with these many people, right?
Yeah, when I was playtesting, I had a fixed board, and I had just block off these spaces with a certain number of players.
Right.
So then I got a hold of Heiko Gunther.
Mm-hmm.
He's the graphic designer. He did graphic design for Potion Explosion. He did graphic design for Tesla versus Edison and the New Science. He also did graphic design for Glory to Rome Black Box,
Right.
the really sought after version of Glory to Rome. And he's also a game designer in his own right with Peak Oil that he did. So Heiko is fantastic, and he's wonderful to work with. So I showed him all the stuff I had, and he thought about it a little bit, and then he came back with pretty much what you see. He's
Wow.
like, okay, well, we can split this all up into all these different player boards, and instead of blocking things off, we can just have these player boards do this, and that'll also not take up as much table space as before. So Heiko is amazing. He is very, very, very smart, and he's really funny also. So I really enjoy working with him.
Now, the other thing I had to know, as somebody who enjoys puns, plays on word, and all those things, I know that well gets rapidly exhausted. So how the heck did you come up with all these television puns and things? Like my goodness, it was a lot of work.
It was, but I have to say I got a lot of help for the starting shows.
Okay.
Get to know your lower colon and all that. I just put it up to my Facebook friends, and I said, just give me names for terrible public access TV shows. And they went to town. They gave me so many phenomenal ideas, and it was wonderful. So I was really so happy to see all this great stuff, and I picked from the best. So I can't take credit for most of those. Like
Okay.
my girlfriend in particular came up with Let's Pickle. Like that was hers, not mine. But I think, but the most of the other ones, once you get into season one and all, that's where I took over, and I was able to do most of those. But with my girlfriend's help, I made this confession on BGG.
Mm-hmm.
I don't watch a lot of TV. I mean, you'd think that the networks would be by someone who watches a lot of TV. I
Right.
actually don't watch TV at all. So, and that's not like a hipster thing. Like that's not like I
Right.
don't watch TV, I'm so much better. It's not my kind of thing. But my girlfriend does enjoy her television, so she was able to help me with a lot of stuff. Like, oh, this one isn't so good. You should try this instead. She saved me from myself because
Good ones do that, Gil. Just
yes, yes, very much so. So at Teletime, there's a show called Lay All Your Chat on Me,
Okay.
and that's a chat show. and Lay All Your Chat on Me. That's from an ABBA song because, of course, the
Right.
show is based off of Alan Partridge, Knowing Me, Knowing You, which technically isn't a chat show. Technically, it's a sitcom. But I decided to break through a wall
Oh
and
my
make it a
goodness.
chat show. And yeah, in the fiction. But originally, the name of it, because it had to be a pun off an ABBA song, so you knew it was Alan Partridge. Originally, it wasn't going to be Lay All Your Chat on Me. Originally, it was going to be Take a Chat on Me. And that she vetoed that, and she was probably right.
Yeah, I could see where that's gonna go because Now, is she British or is she just involved in the British culture? Because there's a lot of stuff in that Teletime that's not easily found. I don't think.
Well, she and I are both Anglophiles, but what I
Okay.
did for Teletime is I assembled a panel of a bunch of British friends who
Oh,
were willing to
excellent.
help me. And I ran all the shows by them, and they caught a lot of stuff. Like originally, I was going to have a pun on Graham Norton. I was
Okay.
going to call him Graham Cracker. And they're like, nope, nope, Graham Crackers are an American thing. They are not a British thing. I mean, they're digestives at best over there. The closest things they
Okay.
have to them is there. And I was going to do like I forgot what show, but I was going to do a parody name that involved lightning bugs, and they're like, nope, nope, there are no lightning
No.
bugs over here. No.
No.
So there's a bunch of things. I wanted to make a play off of Room 101, which is a show over there, and so I came up with I think it was Closet 102, and they said we don't. I mean, sometimes we say closet, but use cupboard instead. That's more of a British thing. So okay, I made a cupboard. So they caught a bunch of little things in Teletime, and I'm very grateful. And honestly, I think if you're ever working in a culture that's not yours, that's that's something you really should do. Get
Yeah.
a panel of people together and just have them look at stuff and be like, oh, wait a second, that's not that great, especially with art. Like art can be really really useful to have somebody to review who knows the culture you're trying to do and who can tell you, oh, this isn't going to hit the way you think it's going to hit, because that kind of help is invaluable.
Yeah, really interesting. Have you seen any success overseas with the networks at all?
It's it's really big in England, actually.
Okay.
UK Games Expo. It's always been super popular to the point that UK Games Expo was actually the very first convention where I sold the networks, and it was my first time actually laying eyes on the final product.
Oh
And
wow.
I sold out of it in like 7 hours, I think, in the first day of UK Games Expo. It was ridiculous. So the reception is so great, and honestly, I kind of have a crush on England. So I was like, I should do a version of the networks that's just a bunch of British shows. So that idea has been percolating around for a couple of years, which is why I'm so glad I was finally able to go to UK Games Expo this year with Teletime. But another country that's crazy about it is Germany.
Interesting.
So yeah, so we look at the networks, and a lot of Americans look at the networks and they realize, oh, this is UHF the board game, and I'm like,
Yes.
well, okay, yep, I'll take that. I think that's accurate.
Fair enough.
But so in Germany in the '90s, there was a video game called Mad TV, and Mad TV was about running an upstart TV network, and there were a bunch of shows with really silly names, and so German people looked at the networks and they looked and they're like, wait a second, this is Mad TV, the board game. Where can I get this? And so when the German version came out, Board and Dice released the German version of the networks last year, and that sold really, really well. And they're going to be releasing the German version of Executives at Essen in a couple of months, which is extremely exciting. So Board and Dice, they're finding a lot of success with that because so many people are familiar with Mad TV,
Wow.
and so many people are excited about that. So yeah, Germany is also a country where they really, really like the networks.
Interesting. Wow. I find it very, very interesting to find out how different games do overseas. Kind of like movies. It's the same thing because you don't necessarily know exactly what's going to hit and what's not.
Yep.
And thematically, oh, we're having fun laughing at Americans or what the joke is. But congratulations if it works. So that's
Hmm.
pretty cool. So you said in your bio that you wanted to write games when you were like from way back, when we're talking like
Yeah.
Atari 2600 days and things like that. I kind of had the bug myself back then. Now granted, not that old, but I was still writing letters to Activision,
Oh,
with game
yeah.
suggestions and getting the, Burbank, California, wherever they were, and getting back the letter, sorry, we don't take outside submissions. Did you ever get that letter?
No, I never sent them ideas for games. They stayed in my head. I just sort of drew pictures of me working at Activision with a lovingly drawn Activision logo with eating a bunch of crayons because there was a bunch of different colors at the time.
Yep. You had to have
But,
whatever they
yeah.
had the rainbow in it somewhere.
Yep. It was all over their covers. Back when you couldn't have like a screenshot, so
Right.
you had to like enhance. Like it wasn't Activision. I think it was Activision who had things that looked like the screenshot of the game, but they enhanced it with blurs. Whereas
Right.
Atari, they would do like these full blown oil paintings that would look, like this really super ambitious, epic game, and then you plug the game in, it was just a bunch of boxes.
Yeah.
So it was a little different.
So I mean, it was the kids these days. Get off my lawn. Man, when we bought 2600 games, and maybe you didn't buy it, maybe you rented it, because back then, you could do that. Like I could rent them at a drugstore.
You could rent Nintendo games, like NES games. I think the rental model was there, but I don't believe the rental model was around for 2600s. I could be wrong, but I don't
Yeah.
recall renting games until the NES came out.
I remember, like, that's how I got to try ET, and I thank God I never
Oh,
never bought that steaming pile of garbage. But every game
Oh
was
my
a
gosh.
chance, right? And there, and kind of like we were talking about board games back when the 2600 first came out. I remember my dad making a case because I literally had every 2600 game made. And then all of a sudden, it just did that thing that board games did and just exploded as soon as everybody, Atari licensed, the cartridges, right? And Activision all had those funky, kind of special. They had normal cartridges, but then there was the other one that had.
Magic.
That's it. With the silver one with that pointy thing on the end.
Oh, those games were amazing.
Like
Wait,
Demon
what was the game
Attack?
Demon Attack was one, but what was the game that was like in Atlantis and you were defending Atlantis from invaders?
I don't
Oh,
remember.
That was a good one.
It
That
might have
was
been
probably my
Atlantis,
favorite game.
actually.
It might have been. That was my favorite 2600 game, I think. That game, I just love the look and feel of it. It was phenomenal.
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely interesting, and I think what was tough back then was, the games in the arcade were operating at a level that these home units could never aspire to. And so like I remember when we got Pac-Man, I remember going to Sears, I remember getting it and bringing it home, and it was like the first thing you ever pre-ordered, and it was like, it was a crazy big release back then. And you literally have like Pac-Man changed. He wasn't eating pellets. He was
Yep,
eating
he was
like cookies or wafers, right?
Hyphens.
Hyphens.
Yeah, wafers. Yeah. Yep. And what was really like, you remember the sound of the arcade Pac-Man. It
Yep.
sounded gorgeous,
Yeah.
that Waka Waka, and not just the Waka Waka, but every video game back then, back in the Pac-Man era, had a pulse. Centipede
Yes.
and Space Invaders. There was this driving drum beat to the sound.
Interesting.
That was really, really important. And it was really bass heavy and percussive, and there was real craft behind it. Then you plugged the Pac-Man in, and forget the graphics, the sound effect. Do you remember how it sounded?
Bong, 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 bong. That was horrible.
It sounded horrendous. It sounded.
Yeah.
I mean, it looked terrible. It looked absolutely dreadful. There was one other thing that they had to do, but this was an understandable change, because Pac-Man had a rotated screen. A screen rotated 90 degrees.
Right.
So it was portrait mode essentially
Yep.
for the screen. Because that worked you could do that for a video game. You can't expect people to turn their TV sets on the side to play Pac-Man at home, but
True.
at the same time, the 2600 didn't have the resolution to show a vertical screen and make it smaller. So instead, they expanded it and made it horizontal to fill it up. So that was a change also, but that was an understandable change. But it was, I mean, they were working with such limited resources. I'm sure they did the best that they could do, but oh my gosh, that looked and sounded really, really bad.
Even to the point where, like, I vividly remember the mouth didn't open like the Pac-Man, right? The Pac-Man was the pie wedge that opened up, to a 90 degree and then went back and forth. This was more of it actually like opened like a mouth like that. So many things were off.
Yeah. So many things were really, really seriously off. A little different. Yeah. So many things were really, really seriously off. It was weird. It was big time weird. So I wonder how people born in like 1990 are taking this conversation.
Well, when you play Halo and it's just not the same. Like I was big into gaming, and I remember when Halo was coming out and it was supposed to be a RTS back then. And then it's completely switched to the FPS model, or team-based FPS model. And it was like, I remember that was a huge deal because there was a game called I want to say Myth, or forget what it was that the company made prior to that was completely different. And
Marathon?
No, it was
Bungie made a game called Marathon, but it may have been Myth.
Yeah, I think so. And because it was like zombies and things attacking an island, it was very, I don't know, but we were all looking forward to this more modern thing, and then all of a sudden Bungie went and totally pivoted, which was the absolute right thing for them to do. And
history proved them right.
Yeah, absolutely. And then look at it now. It's like, it's amazing. But how far do you play any games nowadays? I mean, we're probably bigger gamers when we were kids and we came up with this, and this was new back then, but do you still play anything?
Video games?
Yeah.
So one thing that board games taught me is that you can play a game based on your brains and not your reaction time and not your thumbs.
Okay.
And that was always a thing that bugged me because my coordination's never been good. And ever since one of the reasons I realized I like board games more than video games is this realization that, wait a second, I can play a game and my dexterity has no impact on the game whatsoever. So ever since then, I haven't played so many video games.
No.
So that's one end, are the video games that are like effectively dexterity games.
Sure.
So I don't play those so much. And then on the other games are the games that I'm not allowed to play. Like I do not allow myself to play. The biggest example is a game like Out of the Park Baseball.
Okay.
Which is a baseball GM sim. And if I ever get my hands on it, goodbye everyone. You're not going to see me for like 4 weeks. Because all I'm going to do is, I'm gone. I'm a goner. So I don't allow myself to play any sort of sports GM sim. I can't play. I can't allow myself to play because that's just, it's too much. Roller Coaster Tycoon has that effect also.
Oh, yeah.
Just these effects of building. Any game that has that kind of building. It's funny because I never really got that much into Sim City, but Roller Coaster Tycoon hit me really hard. I love roller coasters, so that's a big part of it.
Yeah, and you could like not end them, and people would just go flying off the end of your roller coaster. It was always fun to do.
Yeah, it was weird that your roller coasters could it was such a happy-go-lucky game, but then your roller coasters could crash, and then everybody on it would die, and just from a random die roll, effectively, and then everybody would leave your park, and that's like, man, what a downer. That's not quite what I expected, A game like that, I expect everybody to at least like parachute off the roller coaster and then run out of the park, and then everybody else runs out with them.
G.I. Joe style, right?
Yeah.
The planes always blew up, and there's always a parachute.
Yep, totally. And it's not like you ever saw Cobra come in and gun the people in the parachute down. No, that never happened.
It's funny with games like that, though. I always found myself, I think we're similar spirits here, because I always found myself more interested in making it look great than I actually did about the score or anything when it came to SimCity. And I stopped at 2000 because, 2000 was the last one I played. I liked making it look cool and nice and pretty, and that's just how I played it.
Yeah, there's especially in a game like Roller Coaster Tycoon, you could be like, okay, I'm gonna have this roller coaster like cut through the ground and have this
Yep.
underground part of the roller coaster. Then it would come up through a lake and a tunnel in the lake, and I mean, there's so much imaginative stuff you could do. And newer versions, like I did the version that didn't have the first person perspective.
Right.
Newer ones, like you click a button and see the roller coaster from first as if you're riding it, and that's so cool. But I can't do it. Like maybe someday I'll retire and
Right.
I'll allow myself to do that.
You just know
Man,
it's a time suck.
Yep. Retirement communities in 20 years are going to look totally different, aren't they? They're just going to be a bunch of. That's just pretty much going to be a LAN party.
Oh, now I don't even know if half the people know what that is, because they're like, what do you mean you had to cable your computers together? Like, that's how we played Diablo, man. Like, we literally had to have people bring their boxes over and play like hooked up. That was the only way we could do teamwork back then.
And how many of those people went on to be like networking aces, and now they've got like $500,000 a year jobs because they got their training putting together computers for LAN parties. Man, this conversation's really drifted, hasn't it?
They usually do, Gil. I like to be all over the map. I mean, I think it's important to see all facets of our lives, right?
Definitely,
like I'm
definitely.
kind of like you. Everybody like, oh, don't you have a new like gaming system? I'm like, the last one I bought was a Wii, and that's it. No. Because I'm like you. I'm like, I know if I get that thing, I'm gonna get a game, and I'm gonna be stuck playing it for way too many hours when I could be doing a lot of other things.
My girlfriend and I are playing Pokemon Go, and playing a little bit of that. I'm like, oh no, I can feel the same urge,
Right.
coming up again. Like, oh no, like all I want to do is work on my Pokemon and make them better and better and better. And so I found that I had to draw boundaries and be like, okay, I'm only doing it when at this time of the day, and that's it. That's all I'm going
Right.
to allow myself to do. If I'm not going outside and just doing the metagame of like evolving my Pokemon and figuring which one to keep, which one to get rid of, which ones to and trying to appraise them all, and coming up with a naming system where I can put all my appraisals on. Like it's crazy like how deep you can go in taking care of those critters. So yeah, that one has scared me a bit in how closely it cuts to that part of me that really likes to build things. So yeah, video games can be So those are video games that I play these days.
Well, I think this is a great place to stop because we ran the full gambit. We went from ferrets to
Yeah.
video games, so
Yeah, I'll take it.
it's pretty awesome. So why don't we play a game real quick?
Okay, I'm down for that.
All right. So what we're going to do is we're going to pause for a quick commercial break, and then when we come back, we'll play a quick game with Gil. All right?
Yeah.
So we'll be right back after this.
All right.
Have you or a loved one been hurt in a board game accident, by a table, cut by a card, or worse? Have you suffered a DVT from sitting at a board game too long? Have you or someone you love lost fingers, appendages, or even life due to these games? Well, here at Meeple and Bits, we are the board game lawyers. No one understands board game law like we do. We will fight hard for your right. So be sure to contact us before you make any decision. You can reach us at 1-800-555-BITS. That's 1-800-555-BITZ. And remember to call us because we don't get paid unless you do.
It's game time!
Well, hello. Welcome back. I am here with Gil sans Ferret, and we are going to play a game. Now,
She's back in the hammock. She's asleep.
it's a ferret's life. That's what they say,
It
right?
really is. What a great life it is. So we're gonna play something, aren't we?
We are. So Dan is not here just because jobs and the way they get in the way of our fun sometimes. Just not
yeah,
cool.
I mean, yeah, not cool at all. Not
You should
cool
be doing
job,
the thing
not
you do
cool.
the thing you do for free. You should prioritize that. So
Yeah. I mean, money and benefits and things like that. Backseat.
my friend Gil here and I are going to play a game. Now, Dan set up Gil for this, and I had to do my own homework. But the game that Dan came up with is we are going to describe a show on a television show that may or may not be US or UK. I think he may have even thrown Canada in there, maybe. But we're going to describe the show, and then we're going to give 3 titles that the show could be. Now, one of them is going to be correct, and obviously it's up to us to guess which one it is for each other.
Okay.
Makes sense? So I got to make my official score sheet here. Put a C, we'll put a G. Any questions?
No, I'm ready to go.
All right, so let's bring on our cool Games with Guests set.
Yep.
Ta-da.
Woo.
Much better.
Yep.
Little close-up, you know. I think it's a little more mono-y mono, as it were. Cool. Sir, you are the guest, so I will give you the option. Would you like to ask or receive first?
I will receive first.
You will receive. All right. So the show synopsis is the 2 male leads are former race car drivers who are hired by the LAPD because of their superior driving skills. They are to become members of the newly formed division, starring a very young Michelle Pfeiffer, I might add. Sounds interesting, right?
Yep. Okay.
So is the name of the show the LAPD CAR division? Is it BAD Cats, Bad Cats? Or is it Hot Laps?
Wow. This was... Now, if this were... Like, I used to watch TV nonstop as a kid.
Right.
So if this was on after I stopped watching TV nonstop, then I'm pretty much guessing 1 out of 3. So
I would argue with a very young Michelle Pfeiffer, it was probably in your sweet spot.
Oh, we'll see. Okay, so number 2 was
Bad Cats.
Bad Cats. Is that KATT?
CATS.
Bad Cats. And number 3 was...
That was Hot Laps.
With 2 T's? Hot Laps?
HOTLAPS.
Oh, you people are disappointing me with your lack of 80 spelling. I'm going to go with Hot Laps. That's the third one.
Unfortunately, that is not correct.
Oh.
It was actually called Bad Cats, and it stood for burglary, you know that word, auto detail commercial auto thefts.
Wow.
Yeah.
All right.
I don't even think it made half a season, if I'm to be believed.
Wow. All right.
So you learned something today.
I did. I learned about Michelle Pfeiffer's big TV show. Okay, so I'm going to throw one your way.
All right.
So this is a TV show in which we got the opportunity to travel and eat with Action Bronson.
Okay.
So now I think so. I didn't write this question, so I'm not entirely sure who Action Bronson is, and that's not Charles Bronson. I'm showing my age here.
No, I'm thinking maybe it's Charles Bronson's son, maybe, I don't know, or somebody who idolizes Mr. Bronson. I mean,
I got to look that up, but okay. So the opportunity to travel and eat with Action Bronson, or at least watch Action Bronson travel and eat, just like being there. Okay. Option 1 is Deli Wish. Option 2 is Damn Good Eatin', and that's eaten with an apostrophe.
Okay, and no G.
No G, Damn Good Eatin'. and option number 3 is That's Delicious.
Wow. You know, the whole Bronson angle makes me go with the first one. It's got to be that one. Deli Wish.
Yeah, based off of Death Wish. I'm afraid that is incorrect.
Oh.
The correct answer is number 3. That's Delicious.
Okay.
Must have aired on Vice or something.
It must have. That's pretty good. I'm gonna have to ask Dan where he dug these up. He must not have Safe Search enabled. That's for sure. All right. It's okay, kids. Go get Daddy's laptop. All right. based on a popular movie of the time. This is a fish out of water story when Japanese culture comes to the Detroit auto industry. Is this Mushi Mushi, Domo Arigato, or Gung Ho?
So this is where my age benefits me because I remember the movie from must have been like 85 with Michael Keaton about I think it was something about Japanese industry moving into an American place, and yes, that movie was called Gung Ho, and that was the name of the short-lived TV series also.
It was indeed.
Yeah.
And I want to say, I think Tom Hanks, if I'm not mistaken, I have to double check this. I meant to put that note in. I think he may have played the lead in that. I have to look.
No, I'm pretty sure it was Michael Keaton.
Was it again, and even in the TV show?
Oh no, I don't know about the TV show. It was in the movie. It was Michael Keaton.
Yeah.
I don't know about the TV show. Is Tom Hanks? That seems like a big get.
Not back then. He was just fresh off Bosom Buddies, man. He was.
Maybe.
You know, the career was not even in that upward climb yet.
He was about to go on the big heights of Bachelor Party.
Yes, exactly.
Oh my gosh, we're old. Okay, so my second question. It's a 4-word pitch, and those 4 words are shape-shifting doctor fights crime. So that's the summary of the show.
I like it.
That's a heck of a pitch, right? Shape-shifting doctor fights crime. Your 3 options are Manimal, Dr. Mange, or Crime Dog MD.
So this is where my age gets to come through, because that's totally Manimal. And
it's so Manimal.
Oh.
Oh my gosh. I remember. I looked at that and I'm like, oh, that one's easy. That one's so easy.
That's a borderline gimme on that one, because
I know, right? I
absolutely.
got a little freaked out by those transformations. You know, they're probably on YouTube. It was some pretty impressive special effects when that guy would transform into the animal. They'd have like the transition shots as he's changing.
Yeah.
And they'd have these little sacks that they'd stick on the actor's face, and they'd pump them full of air so like his face would start bulging out. That freaked me the heck out as a kid.
Yeah, it wasn't just some Flash, he's something else, like, you know, Wonder Twins or anything. It was like full on. Like, the transformation didn't just happen. It took a few seconds.
And I think soon, not long after that, a few years after Manimal came and went, then Altered Beast, the video game, hit arcades, and that had similar transition scenes. You know, when you transformed
when you
from
powered
man
up.
Yep. Yeah. So I think there was a little Manimal influence there.
Absolutely. I mean, we were kind of obsessed with that thing last year, a few decades ago, maybe.
Back in the day. That was a great game, though.
Get off my lawn, kids. Actually, if you're going to be on there, why don't you grab a lawnmower, dude? Make yourself busy. All right.
I mean, if you're going to play an old video game, don't bother with Pac-Man for the 2600.
No.
That's not worth it. But Altered Beast, play the heck out of that thing. That is a very good game.
Absolutely. Was that Super Nintendo, I think, by then?
Yeah, I think it was like Genesis and SNES.
Oh,
at
yeah,
that point,
yeah.
I think, yeah.
That might have been Neo Geo even.
Possibly.
Wow. Remember Neo Geo 16? Yeah. That was like, oh my God, Billy has a Neo Geo. It's crazy. Look it up, kids. It was big. It was expensive. Nothing like the Silver Spoon's house with the arcade in the first floor, but, you know, what are you going to do?
You ever go over somebody's house and they had a video game in the basement, like an arcade cabinet, and you're like, oh my gosh, how did you get that?
No, I didn't have that kind of friend, but it was close.
Yeah, it seriously is. It's pretty amazing. All right, what's my next question?
All right, so Catherine Hicks plays in a husband and wife duo who run a detective agency. But this is no run-of-the-mill detective show. It seems that Amanda could be endowed with supernatural forces and uses her powers to help solve cases. But this isn't always his plus, as sometimes her powers are, shall I say, unreliable. And that's the internet speaking there. So here we go. Is it Broomsticks and Burglars, Tucker's Wish, or Premonition Detective Agency?
The second one sounds a little more like a TV show. I could be wrong, but I'm going to go with the second one.
So that's Tucker's Witch?
Yes.
That is absolutely correct, sir.
Woo! Wow, that was a wild guess.
Right. I mean, but hey, that's solid.
Sometimes it just sounds like a TV show, I guess.
Yeah, I get that. I get that.
All
All
right,
right, sir. So you
mine
have
for
2,
you.
I have 1.
Yep. Okay. But now this is your third. I think I'm 2 for 3 and you're 1 for 2. So we're gonna get level here again. So for you, this one focuses around the rapper 2 Chainz, and in it he explores extravagant expenditures. I did not write this copy. Rapper 2 Chainz explores extravagant expenditures. Is it 1, most blingingest? Most blinging guest. Most blinging guest?
The sad thing is I knew what you meant.
Yeah. Number 2, most expensivest. Or
Okay.
number 3, most money.
Wow. That's like, that goes from bad to worse.
It's like, can it get worse? Oh, yes, it can.
Yeah, I want to go with the most money, just because I want it to be that.
Oh, if I were you, I would too, except that's not the right answer.
Of course
The
not.
right answer is most expensivest.
There you go.
Yeah. But most money is a much better name for that show. Maybe that's why it didn't work out.
Right. Is that... See, now I got to find out if that's like in the dictionary or not. It's expensivest.
I'm pretty sure it's not. Otherwise, people would have used it in Wordsy Bot.
Oh, and you would know. Well, see, part
Yeah.
of me was going to play Wordsy with you, and I'm like, I just get smoked because my vocabulary is crap.
I'm pretty tired right now. I think you could take me.
That's it. I win
All
by
right,
sleep
let's do it.
deprivation.
Yeah.
All right.
All right.
In 2005, so this is, you may not have a chance here.
We'll
The
see.
man responsible for Big Brother on German television embarked on a serious project about fertility involved 12 men competing to see who could get their sperm over the finish line the soonest. That means to fertilize an egg. That's what they're actually doing. The 3 options are destination fertilization, making baby, or the sperm race.
Wow. Well, I've got a 1 out of 3 chance, don't I? Destination fertilization has a catch to it, but the sperm race is very direct and it tells you exactly what it is. And what was the second
True.
one?
Making baby.
Making baby. You know, somewhere there's a 12-year-old who's like just realizing, wait a second, is this where I came from? Am I the product of a TV show? Oh my gosh. I'm going to go with the sperm race.
You are absolutely correct. Your intuition serves you
Wow.
well.
Oh, that was luck. That was pure luck.
No, but I like the way you reasoned it out, though. It's, I like where you're at. I thought I had you at Destination Fertilization. I thought that was a great name.
That is a really good name. I'm just trying to think like a TV executive, in the most jaundiced and condescending way possible. Jaundiced and most condescending way possible. Although,
Well, the nice thing is we're giving you some ideas for the next
this is
expansion.
very true. Very true. I should say I have friends who are TV executives, so hopefully they're not watching me diss them. But anyway.
If they didn't play your game enough already, right?
Yep. All right, are you ready for question number 4?
I am most certainly ready.
All right, here we go. The pitch is celebrities try to master sheep herding. Celebrities try to master sheep herding. So your
Sounds
3
great.
options are, it's great, isn't it? It's going to be fantastic. Option number 1 is the call of the wool.
Okay.
Option 2 is 12 labors of the sea list.
Okay.
And option number 3 is flock stars.
Wow. I really like Flock Stars, and I think that's the next Uwe title. Um,
It's going to
but
be his new trilogy.
oh my goodness, right? He has to come up with it. Wow. What was the second one? I like that one.
12 Labors of the Sea List was the second one.
I like that because I have a feeling, it's very punchy and catchy. I'm going to go with that one.
Yeah, unfortunately, it is not that one. Maybe it was too insider. It is indeed Flock Stars.
Really?
Yep.
See, I'm taking the alternate strategy to you. I'm ditching the obvious one in my brain.
Yeah, it might still work. I mean, I wonder if it's British, and if it's British, they're more willing to go with a pun. Maybe I'm just guessing.
Yeah. They're also more willing to label people as C-listers. That's what I was thinking. So
That's very true.
they don't really hold too many punches. All right, moving on then, sir.
All right,
Here's yours.
Let's hit me.
So this is in 2011. There was a game show where contestants compete to win money and where they had to avoid setting off booby traps that would scare a giant robotic animal. You'll be shocked and bewildered to know the show didn't quite get the BBC ratings it was hoping for. Is the show Mind the Gap, Don't Scare the Hare, or Booby Traps and Bullocks?
So it sounds like it was a British show.
It was. In fact, it calls out that it was on the BBC. So.
Yep. So I would go with the third one, Booby Traps and Bollocks.
And I agree with you. I'd love it to be that, but apparently the giant animal you were trying not to scare was a hare.
So it was the second one.
Yep, it was Don't Scare the Hare. I'm
My
imagining
gosh.
just a giant Monty Python-esque rabbit with big, sharp, pointy teeth, kind of waiting
Yeah.
to devour contestants.
Oh yeah. That would pretty ruthless. Oh,
Cool. Well, I have one left. So do
All
you
right.
have one left?
I do have one left. So you first.
All right. So the creator of the beloved series, The Gilmore Girls, is back with a new creation. In 2012, the cast features many of the same actors, and it's a ballerina troupe serves as the backdrop for this drama. Is the name of this Bunheads, Toe Shoes, or The Tutu Times?
I don't know how they wouldn't resist calling it the two times. I will go with that.
Again, I think it's great, and I think you're right, but unfortunately, it's Bunheads. Because they always wear their heads up in a bun, I guess.
I guess so. Well,
Yeah.
I guess that's why the show got canceled.
I literally, I don't think it lasted. I don't even think it lasted 6 episodes. I forget how bad it was. It was canceled pretty quickly.
Oh, that's too bad. Also, because the Gilmore Girls was a phenomenal show.
It was,
So,
but unfortunately,
yeah.
sometimes you just can't spark that same magic, I guess.
Can't recapture the magic. It's
No.
tough. It's really really hard when you got something that special coming around. All right. So my last question.
All right.
In this one, contestants and brides to be compete to win plastic surgery.
Who wouldn't want
con-
that?
I know, right? Contestants and brides to be. That is I guess what we're saying is that the contestants are brides to be
Okay.
compete to win plastic surgery. So your options are number 1, bridal plasty, number 2, walk the aisle in style,
Okay.
and option number 3, in happiness and in knife.
Wow. So for those of you keeping score at home, there's no way I can win, but I really want it to be bridal plasty because I think that's just fabulous.
That is a fantastic name, and it is the correct name.
You set me up, Gil, because that was the way you introduced all of them.
Yep. That is the name of the show, bridal plasty. That is a really good name. So I think it was 3-2 in the end.
It was. And you
Just
bested
squeaked it
me,
out.
but
All right. Thank
That's
heaven
fine.
for lucky guesses.
well, we both had. I think what's hysterical is we each had one like, oh yeah, it's totally that one, But
Yep,
then
yep.
the rest of them was kind of like, we had to
Just
suss it
guessing.
out.
Yep.
So, you ever need help with show titles, I think the person to ask is Dan, actually.
I think I might. I think I just might. In Happiness and in Knife is pretty good.
That is. Sir, thank you so much for being on. If people
thank you
want to
for having
find
me.
you, I appreciate it. It's been wonderful, and it's a thrill to get to talk to somebody who designs a game that I absolutely adore like that. And
Thank you.
I'm super excited for High Rise coming to Kickstarter next year at some point.
February.
Awesome. So I'll make sure that my pledge finger is poised and ready for that one.
Yep. All right. So to find me, you can find me if you want to bring up that lower third. There we go. Excellent. You can find me at Gil up that side. There we go. At Gil Hova. That is my handle on Twitter and on Instagram. You can also go to formalferretgames.com. You can also go find Formal Ferret Games on Facebook. I should update that every once in a while. And those are probably the best ways to find me. If you tweet me at Gil Hova, I try to respond, at least if you're nice.
And that happens once in a while. You responded to me, so I can't complain.
Yeah. Well, of course I did. I mean, your game all night. Of course I'm going to respond to you.
Well, thank you, sir. Thank you. This has been a lot of fun.
And your Secret Cabal also. I love your show, Jamie.
Oh, well, absolutely. I try real hard at my production value. What can I say? And I have awesome blue eyes, as my wife would say. Well, thank you, Gil. This was a great night. I really appreciate you being on.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you, sir. Thank you at home for watching.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, and be sure to laugh the next time you hear a funny TV show when you game all night.
Game All Night is proud to be sponsored by Game Toppers. Check them out at GameToppersLLC.com, upgrading your gaming experience. Well, that's a wrap. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed our efforts at comedy and fun, please support us on Podpledge. Be sure to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And of course, don't forget to engage with us on Board Game Geek Guild 3134. You can also check us out on our website, GameAllNightShow.com. This show has been made possible through supporters like these. Angry Octopus.
These kids today don't know what games were like.
Just to make sure, you didn't expect me to record anything on my end, right?
Oh yeah, you were supposed to record your whole thing.
Am I allowed to swear?
Oh, you can swear all the hell you want.
Okay, just making sure. You remember our friend the Bling Tag, right? It's the second half of the first half of the show, from what I'm getting.
Not just The Bachelor, where you see who gets to sleep with who first. So